Hi, Nathana from Make a Mess here. Today's project is this beautiful Indigenous bird project. It's a really fun project to do and it has lots of beautiful little details inside his body. See all his little dots and his little heart? It's very sweet and although it looks a little complicated, it really isn't. So I'm going to teach you how to do it step by step. You just have to follow along with me. The first thing you're going to need is your big foam dabber and your light blue paint. Now I've poured some into my palette, so if you have a paper plate or a palette nearby and you want to pour a little bit in, it's easier to get to dip instead of the little paint pots. Or you can even pour just a little bit on your background of your canvas and then spread it around. So what we want to do is just cover the whole back of our canvas with the blue. And you just want to cover every little white spot. It's a nice thin, even coat. You don't want any big clumps anywhere. Get all the little white spots all around. And don't forget to do your edges as you go. Some of you may have circles and some of you may have rectangles in your art kits, and that's okay. They're going to be different for everybody, and it's kind of fun to have a surprise like that. If you're working on a rectangle, I think I would recommend going vertically with your rectangle, but it's a pretty centered bird, so it could look pretty cool horizontally too. Maybe it gives him more room for his wingspan. So I'm gonna let you decide what direction you put your canvas. Because although I'm teaching you this project, this is your art piece and it's gonna come together. Every one of them is gonna be different. And that's my favorite part about this. Just getting all around my edges. If you have a circle canvas, it's a little bit trickier to get all the little creases around your edges. So just watch for that. There we go. We just want to coat it all nice with the light blue, and we have to let it dry next. So throughout the video, there's going to be times where we're going to need to pause. So you can pause now and go wash and dry your brush because we're going to need it again, but we have to make sure it's dry. There's sponges, so you really want to squeeze out the extra water and then set it aside to dry for the next step. We're going to make sure our background is dry because we always want to work on a dry background. And you can set your brush for the background, the dabber. You can set that aside for a minute and grab your detail brush. And you're going to need some black paint. I have mine in my palette. And you could probably just dip into your little container for this one if you prefer. Or you can pour a little bit out. Either way, you don't need a lot of it. The paint goes a long way. And we're going to start building the shape of our bird. So let's look at him closely for a minute. So he's actually broken down into lots of geometric shapes that I'm sure you're all familiar with. So his body is basically a circle, maybe a slight oval shape, just a little bit kind of longer than a circle and taller. And then his neck is made up of a square. And then his head is really also just a circle, maybe a little bit of an oval to the side. That would work. And then his tail is kind of triangular shaped. It definitely has two triangles at the bottom, and it kind of comes down into a triangle and then splits off into two other triangles. But if you look at it, there's lots of geometric shapes that are really recognizable, and they're all just put together to make this piece. So we're going to start with his big body circle that we looked at first. It's kind of a circle, kind of a bit of an oval, like an egg. So it might go up just a little bit more than a circle would. And we're going to do that about the middle of our canvas with our paintbrush in the black. And we're going to just do a circle for his body. So you'll have something like this. Once you have that on there, the next step is going to be a square for his neck. And you can just attach that square to the body. It looks kind of funny right now, doesn't it? But it'll come together, don't worry. Now on top of that, we're gonna do his circle head. And it might curve a slight bit into an oval shape and go off of the, it can go off of that square shape a little bit. This one actually doesn't as much as the one I just did. That's okay. They're all gonna be a little different. Don't worry if it's not exactly the same as mine. Mine won't be exactly the same as mine because it's art. It's not a photocopy, right? They're all gonna be different. And since we're up at his head, let's give him his beak, which is just gonna be like a curve at the top and then a curve at the bottom that connects to it. Now we're gonna work on the tail. Once everybody is caught up with the circle or the oval for the body, the little square kind of shape for the neck, the circle, maybe a slight oval for the face, and then his little hook nose. Then we're going to do his tail. So his tail actually sort of starts coming in a bit like a triangle would, but not fully all the way into a triangle. And then you're just gonna go curve out a teeny bit on both sides, kind of try and make it even. And then each of those becomes the tip to one of the little triangles of his tail feathers. So it looks like this. He's starting to come together now. You can see where he's going, see his body. I'm just thickening up my circle. My original circle was a little bit thin, so I'm just kind of going over some of my lines and making them a little bit more even and consistent throughout the whole art piece. There we go. It kind of looks like a penguin right now. He's cute. Okay, let's look at these wings next. The wings are made up of, they're kind of like a rectangle shape, but a loose rectangle. They're not perfect. But then see how each little piece of the wing is also sort of like a little rectangle? Now their corners aren't super sharp. They are rounded corners, but they still sort of have a rectangular feel to them. So we're gonna start by doing like two kind of L shapes. They're gonna go up and down on both sides. That's where we're gonna start with building our wings. So for the wings, we're gonna do a line that goes up and then down, kind of like an L. And the same on the other side, up and then down. Once you have that L shape, then you can add in the sort of square feathers. And they're all going to be a little bit different. I have 3 on each side. If you can fit 3, that's great. My third one is a little bit smaller. See? Kind of 2 bigger ones and a smaller. And then it comes up and turns in where the wing attaches to the body. And we're going to do that same thing on the other side. So we'll come down, we'll make one of these kind of rectangle shapes, we'll give a little space, make another one, give it a little space, make a smaller one, and then all the way up and curve into the body. Now we're just going to break up the inside of his body into a few more little sections for us to add more color and more shapes to him. So where your neck meets your body, take those lines and go straight down. Like that. And that'll give us 3 sections inside the body that we can fill in and change the colors of. Let's add a little detail in his wings too. So let's put a rectangle shape on the inside of each of the wings. It's kind of a rectangle shape. Doesn't have to be perfect. There, something like that. It's coming together. And then what we're gonna do, see how it looks like his head's really like a ball sitting on top? We're just gonna soften that a little bit so it doesn't go like a snowman, like around the head into a point and then back down. We're just gonna make his neck a little bit more flat, like that. See how it really changes his shape? Just to do that. Okay, I'm happy with that. It's looking really good. That's gonna be the beginning of our bird, and there's lots still to come. But we're gonna let the black dry a little bit before we start filling in the insides. And next we're gonna do the sun. So hopefully you've got a good space available for your sun, and it doesn't matter what side it goes on, that's fine. You can change whatever position fits your canvas, okay? So grab your yellow and we'll do the next step. So for this one, you're gonna wanna pour some yellow into your palette because we need to dip the big dabber. So grab your big dabber, pour some yellow into your plate or your palette, or a little piece of cardboard or something, whatever you can use to just pour a little bit of paint out on. You don't need to pour the whole paint palette. You'll really just need one dip, so it's just enough to cover your dabber. So I've got my dabber all dipped in the paint, and then I wiped a little bit off on my palette too. So I dipped and then I wiped some off so that I didn't have a bunch of extra clumpy paint, because it's way easier to control paint when you don't have too much of it. So wherever you're gonna put your sun on your painting, you're gonna take your dabber and you're gonna push it down, spin it in a circle slightly, trying to not move it in any direction, just spinning it directly in a circle. And then pull up. And there's our sun. Kind of let it dry a little bit if you can. And we're gonna add in the details of the black rays around the sun. In this style of painting, these bold black lines are really what defines the style, as well as the geometric shapes that divide everything up and the colors. So if you're super careful, you can do this, but you don't want to smudge your sun. So be very careful while you're doing it. And what you're going to do is carefully go around your sun with the black paint. And you want to be as careful as you can to keep a circle shape and to not smudge your yellow. So go nice and slowly while you're doing that. And then we're gonna add rays. We're just gonna do 4. So see how one goes up, one goes down, and one goes left and right. We're gonna do the same idea. So we're gonna have one coming up out of the sun. And then at the bottom where they connect to the sun, it can be a little teeny bit angled outwards, kind of like the base of a tree, or like a Y shape even. And then again for the bottom of my sun, and then on either side. It's hard to see it upside down. And then one this way, and one this way. Definitely have to fix that one up a little bit. There we go. There, something like that. And these ones can go right off and even around if you want. They can wrap right around your canvas. That's kind of cool. And this one's gonna hide in behind your bird. And now on this painting, it actually, the sun ray kind of hit the bird's head, so I could stop it there. This one, it seems to go a little bit further above the bird. So you could do a couple of things. You could just stop it like that and leave it. You could go right across if you wanted. There's no right or wrong, whatever you think would look nicest. There, I think I'm gonna leave that one like that. Okay, so we've got the black all done. Now all we have to do is start filling in. But before we can do that, it's really important that your black of your bird is dry. So make sure it's nice and dry. If you need to take a little break while it dries, that's okay. And if you want to quickly just give it a once over. I just noticed that I have a couple spots that I want to touch up. So do that before you let it dry. But then once we come back, we're going to start filling in all the colors. The reason we need to let it dry and we don't want to just go right away at filling in is because if you start with black and you just start filling in, it's going to mix. The green will mix with the black, the red will mix with the black, and you'll end up with these like mucky kind of colors. They're not going to be as nice, like bold, crisp colors unless you let it dry. But once you let it dry, the cool thing with acrylic paints is you can even paint right over top of another color, but it has to be dry first. That's a really good thing to know too. If you feel like you made a mistake somewhere and you need to fix it, just let it dry. Let it dry completely, then paint over it. If you do it too soon, it's gonna mix and it's gonna make it worse and worse and worse. So make sure you're patient about the drying process. It's really important too. So take 5, let it dry, and we'll come back to filling in our bird in a moment. This next part of the painting is the funnest part. It's really cool because you can choose whatever colors you want and you can put your colors wherever you want. So you can follow what I have for an example. If you like that positioning and you like those patterns, feel free to follow and copy. I'm going to do it the same way. But you can also change it up. If you prefer a green body and red wings, you can do that. Or if you want to do, I don't know, a red head and a green tail, you can change it up if you want. This is your artwork and you can make it your own. So I do suggest always starting with whatever parts you want to be yellow first, because yellow is the lightest color. We'll be able to switch without going to wash our brush again. As long as we have a paper towel nearby, we can wipe it off and then move to the next color. So do all the little bits that you want to be yellow first. I'm gonna do, I got some green on the top of mine there. That's okay. See, I've got a little bit of green. I'll just cover that up later with a little bit of blue. I'm just gonna let it dry fully before I do that. But in the meantime, I'm gonna start by doing his face all yellow. And when you're filling in these little sections, it's just like coloring. You wanna be super careful not to go to the lines, and you also don't need a lot of paint. You just wanna dip the tip of your brush in the paint. You never want the paint to make it all the way up on the silver part or the gold part of your paintbrush. You just want it to be on the bristles. So just a little tiny bit of paint especially when you're filling in, because you don't need a lot. It goes a long way. You spread it out. There we go. So I've got his head, and then his beak, I'm gonna hold my brush on the edge just so that it can get into that teeny little spot, the little crevice at the end of his beak there, a little triangle shape. There. So I've got his head and his beak in the yellow, and I'm gonna do the center of his body in the yellow as well. And don't worry about rushing. If I'm going a little too fast filling in, make sure you pause it, because it's more important that you go at the speed that you can paint at and that you do your best you possibly can and paint as carefully as you can while filling in the lines. I paint every day, so I paint pretty quickly, because when you practice something every day, no matter what it is, you get better at it. And I still notice things that I'm learning every day about art. There, and he's got a yellow body, a yellow head, and a yellow beak. Now I'm gonna wash my brush off. If you've got a paper towel close by, you can just give it a wipe off. I'm gonna wipe it on my jeans because that's what I do. And just get all the extra paint off. And then whoops, and then we'll move on to our red next. So any sections you wanna do red, plan it out, think it out. I'm gonna continue to do the same pattern as I have on the original. So I'm gonna start with his body outsides and his neck and his tail. So I'm gonna do those 4 first. And when I'm filling in, I'm super careful. And if you need to get into the little tight spots, turn your brush on its edge so that you don't have a lot of, like a thick line and a lot of paint. If it's on the edge, you can control it better. And just really go slowly and watch what you're doing. If you go over your black lines at all, at the end, you can always, after it's dry, you can touch it up with the black. So you could go over your lines again in the black just to touch up the little spots that you may have gone out of the lines. I have to do that sometimes too. It's pretty tricky when you're working really little. It's a very detailed piece we're working on. There we go. So I've got his neck, his sides, and now I'll do his tail. I'm gonna hold it on that edge so I can get into the tip of the tail. Here we go. Notice how I'm going like around the shape first. That makes it really easy to get your edges first and then just loosely fill in the middle. He's coming together. Okay, I'm gonna do the red parts of his wings next. There we go. One red wing and another. Need a little dip. There we go. All the reds in. So let's wipe our brush off before we move to the next step. Paper towel is much better choice than pants, but I always use my pants, so it's a bad habit, I guess. But that's okay because I like to make a mess. Okay, so with the green, you're gonna dip in the green and then fill in the rest of the wings or the rest of your area that you have left for green if you've changed the colors up. We just want to get a first coat on everything and then we can go ahead and decorate on top. Here we go. I'm going to put lots of nice little dots on top of these colors afterwards, and they really bring it together, you'll see. Really cool and super easy peasy. The dots are always really fun. One green wing. One more to go. Here we go. Almost done. Are you thinking about what you might name your bird? He seems like a wise bird. I think he's gonna have to be named something wise. I'm gonna think about that one. So fill it all in and we'll move to the next step when it's dry. And my bird is drying up nicely. I think my green's still a little bit wet, but I'm gonna move back to where I did the yellow and it's ready to go. It's nice and dry. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the eye on the bird. And let's look at that. So he's got like a green eye and then a black dot in the middle and then a little tiny bit of that light blue for a highlight in his eye. I used the back of my foam brush, so like the hard part, the wood part, and I dipped it in the green, and then I just dabbed it in the middle. Well, not quite the middle, actually, a little bit closer to the beak area if you can. Like that. So I just dipped and dabbed gently. If you push really hard, it's gonna like squish the paint out. So just dab it really, really gently. And then you have to let that dry for a while. And it might be a little bit thick. Mine's a little bit thick. I'm gonna take a little bit extra off with my finger. But just leave it dry for the rest of the project. And then we'll get back to that when we can do the black dot, okay? But my yellow in the center of his body is also dry. So what I'm gonna do there, with a nice clean brush, I'm just gonna clean it off on my paper towel. I'm gonna do a little heart right in the middle. And to do that, you just need to do 2 little pulls with your paintbrush. So one going in this way, and then one going in that way. Look at that. So I just used the top of my brush to make that round shape, pulled down on an angle, and then moved over, left a little space between them, pulled down on my angle for it to meet, and I made his little heart. And now it's time for fun. So now we can do the dip and dabs. That's all these cool little dots all over the place. And you can do them where you'd like. And see down here, I've got 2 lines too. And these are all done with the back of the detail brush. But what you want to do with them is you can do whatever colors you like, whatever patterns you like. This is your artwork, and I want to see you express yourself in however you'd like. But what you do have to remember is to take your paper towel and wipe your brush off in between color switches. Because if you dip in all the different colors, you're going to end up with like brown dots because you've got all the colors and you've mixed them all together. So we don't want that after working so hard on our beautiful projects. So when you're doing them, just make sure you keep it clean. I'm going to start with some yellow, and I'm going to do 3 dots down each, oh, maybe I'll do 4, of my wings. Doesn't that add like cute little details? You could do a pattern. You could do like yellow, red, yellow, red. You could do any patterns you want. You could do more than that. If you want more than 3 or 4 dots, you could do 2 lines of dots in each one. Wherever your creativity takes you. Look how cute. The other thing you can use is you can use your black. You could use your light blue from the background. I'm gonna put some black dots down the middle underneath his heart. And then maybe one on top. Yeah, that's cute. And maybe one in his neck too. He's coming together. If you want your dots to be a little bit bigger, you can kind of gently wiggle it around a little bit. I'm gonna do some green dots in his tail this time. So I did like a little bit of a bigger dip, and then I just gently like push down and slightly make a little spin with your paintbrush, and that'll make the bigger dots. If you want it smaller, just do like a down and up. And I'm gonna get a little bit of, you could put blue if you want. This guy has blue in his wings. I don't have any blue in my palette, so I'm just gonna dip in the yellow. But you can do green, you can do any color you want. Boop, boop, boop. Look how cute he is. He's really coming together. So once you have all your dots on there and all your shapes filled in and decorated nicely, then we're gonna do his eye, but it has to be really dry to do the eye. So make sure before this next step, you're finished all your dots and everything except for the black in his eye. The other thing I meant to show you is just those little lines. If you like those little lines as a pattern, you're just gonna push your brush down and pull. Still using the back of your brush. You just push down like you're gonna make a dot and then drag it out. Okay, so I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna let it dry because the eye really needs to be dry. If you have a hair dryer, that would even help. But we'll let it dry and then we'll come back to it and we'll finish our last little details. All right, the last step. They look so cute. What you're gonna do now is just use the back of your brush again and make a bigger black dot in the center of your eye. And I'm just kind of putting it down and then doing like a little slight circle to make it a bit bigger than the polka dot that it would leave if you just push down and up. Because I want it to be a little bit bigger than that. So it looks something like this. Now again, we need to let that dry a little bit. And then once it's dry, you know it's a lot of drying, we could blow it off a little bit like this maybe. And once it's all the way dry, then the last little detail is going to be his highlight in his eye. Now when you do highlights, you have to consider the light source. In this painting, our sun is the light source. So our sun's shining on our eagle or our bird. And so the sun's coming from this direction and it's shining this way. And so it's hitting his eye on that side. So that's what that little dot is. That's the reflection of the sun glistening in his eye. So it's the light hitting his eye. And it really brings a painting to life when you add that little detail. In this case, I used the blue. You could use a little bit of the yellow if you wanted even. But I'm just dipping the back of my brush in. I hope it's dry enough. And then thinking of my light source, I'm gonna add one dot, and it can be a little bit in the black, a little bit in the green even. I'm just gonna do one little dot and see how that really brings it to life and completes the painting. It looks awesome. And I'm finger painting now. I'm fixing that little green dot that I had put on there earlier. There we go. Fix that up. There, now I have 2 bird paintings. Oh, I wish I could see all of your paintings. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. And I hope you had fun making this project and that you love it for a very long time and hang it somewhere really special at home. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for painting with me. Bye. Oh, wait, one more thing. Don't forget to sign your name. You can use a Sharpie or some type of marker and just sign it little at the bottom somewhere because you got to own that artwork. Bye.